Public anger is rising against the Palestinian militant group Hamas across the world. Protesters rallied in London, Paris and Geneva. Protests on Sunday to demand the release of the captive hostages. At the same time, there was support for Palestine and demands for an immediate ceasefire. In London, the calls of Free Palestine were reportedly followed by the chants of jihad.
And ask that you continue to stand with us.
Multiple rallies in support of Palestinian people were held across London. Over 100,000 people gathered in various parts of London, urging Israel to halt the quote-unquote genocide in Gaza.
My message to Hamas is, this is about humans, this is about human life and bringing people home to their families. You have families, you have kids, you have mums, dads, grandmas. If you were in this position, you wouldn't want to be separated from them. No one wants to be separated from them. Everyone here gets to go home to be with their families tonight. You get to go home and be with your family and have dinner with your family, whereas 210 people don't. And that is what we're calling for today.
In the United States, hundreds gathered in Minneapolis for what is being called a die-in protest to stand in solidarity with those being killed in Gaza. An attacker tried to run over a pro-Palestinian rally. In Germany, 10,000 people expressed solidarity with Israel outside Berlin's Brandenburg Gate. Near the Brandenburg Gate, around 300 people heard German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier at a solidarity rally at the central Potsdam Square. The president urged the people to stand against anti-Semitism. Later, the police broke an unauthorized demonstration leading to minor scuffle between police and protesters. In Belgium capital Brussels, around 12,000 people came out on the streets to march outside European institutions and stand with the Palestinian people. They demanded an end to the ongoing humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. In Copenhagen, thousands of pro-Palestinians marched near the Danish parliament and chanted slogans in support of Gaza victims. The protesters called on the Danish government to recognize Israel's actions as a war crime. Elsewhere in Paris, 300 people took out placards and images to seek the release of hostages who are being held by Hamas since the October 7th attacks. In the United States, pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets chanting "Palestine will be free" slogans at Boston's Copley Square. The protesters waved Palestinian flags and brandished placards expressing their support to the people in Gaza. Our correspondent Stuart Smith is now joining us live from London. Stuart, good to see you and hi there. The protests have intensified so fast in the past days and now we are seeing demonstrators even clashing on the streets. The police are having a hard time controlling them. Is this the same case in London?
In London, it's a bit different in terms of the response by the police in general hasn't resulted in any attempt to stop protests happening, despite words very soon after the attacks by Hamas against Israel from the Home Secretary here that suggested the police would be incredibly strict, particularly with pro-Palestinian protesters, about the kinds of language they could use and the kind of phrases they could say. The outcome in general has been that the police have taken a careful approach to policing these protests. For example, 100,000 people attended the pro-Palestinian protests in London on Saturday. Only 10 arrests were made, and only one of those is, according to the Met Police, related to inciting racial hatred. That was after a video was posted online which suggested that terms were being said in Arabic, which specialist Metropolitan Police officers identified as potentially being phrases which could be interpreted as inciting racial hatred. That is different to the shouts of jihad, which were also heard on the streets on Saturday. But the police and the prosecutor's office here in the UK say that in and of itself is not illegal. That is allowed, despite the comments by the immigration minister here in London, who suggested that this was completely unacceptable and suggested that that was indeed something that he would condemn. He called it completely reprehensible and suggested it would count as inciting terrorist violence. But in general, that has not been the response of the police with regard to these protests.
Live from London, our correspondent Stuart Smith. Stuart, thank you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.